There's a story we tell ourselves every day about who we were, what we did, and what we could have been. The problem, that story is old, and yet we let it dictate our future. There's a story we tell ourselves every day about who we were, what we did, and what we could have been. The problem, that story is old, and yet we let it dictate our future. Think about it. How many times have you replayed a moment from your past, wishing you had said something different, done something better, or made another choice? We hold on to past failures like they are scars that define us. We carry regrets as if they are chains that bind us. But here's the truth. The past is not a prison, it's a lesson. And lessons are meant to teach us, not trap us. Imagine for a moment that you're driving a car. Ahead of you through the windshield is the future, wide open, full of possibility. But what happens if you spend the entire drive staring in the rearview mirror? You crash, not because the road behind you isn't important, but because it's not where you're going. That's how life works. You can acknowledge where you've been, but if you focus on it too much, you miss everything ahead of you. Yet so many of us struggle to let go. We hold on to old mistakes, bad decisions, failed relationships, and missed opportunities as if keeping them close will somehow change them. But they won't. The past cannot be rewritten. No amount of regret, guilt, or longing will alter what has already happened. What you can change is your response to it. You can choose to let it weigh you down, or you can choose to learn from it and move forward. Think about the most successful people you know. Not just in terms of wealth or career, but in terms of fulfillment, purpose, and happiness. They all have one thing in common. They have made mistakes. They have failed. They have experienced pain, disappointment, and rejection, but they did not allow those moments to define them. They used them. They learned from them. The only way to grow is to release the grip of the past. That doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean ignoring the lessons or pretending certain things never happened. It means acknowledging them, understanding them, and then choosing to move forward in a way that serves you rather than limits you. There's a saying, you can't start the next chapter of your life if you keep rereading the last one. And yet so many of us are stuck on a page we should have turned long ago. Maybe it's fear. Fear that moving forward means losing part of ourselves. Fear that if we let go, we're admitting defeat. But letting go is not about giving up, it's about rising up. It's about choosing to invest your energy in what's ahead instead of what's behind. The past is not your identity. It is not your final destination. It is merely a stepping stone. The only thing that defines you is what you do next. If you want to see what's possible, if you want to create a future that excites you, you have to be willing to put down the weight you've been carrying. Because the truth is, most of what holds us back isn't external, it's internal. It's the stories we tell ourselves, the belief that we are our mistakes, the belief that we are unworthy because of something we did or something that happened to us. But you are not your past. You are the person who has survived it. You are the person who has learned from it. You are the person who has the power to decide what happens next. Every great comeback story begins with a moment of realization, a moment where someone decides that their past will no longer define their future. And that moment can be today. So, let me ask you, what would happen if you finally let go? If you stopped carrying what no longer serves you, if you chose to move forward with clarity instead of regret? The answer is simple. You would be free. Free to grow, free to change, free to become the person you were always meant to be. Maybe it's a mistake you regret. Maybe it's a success you're still clinging to. Either way, if you keep looking backward, how can you ever move forward? See, the past is a lesson, not a life sentence. It's there to teach, not to define. But too often we allow it to weigh us down. We focus on what went wrong instead of what we can do next. So what if instead of holding on to the past, you turned your energy inward? What if you focused on what you can control? Your mindset, your habits, your choices. And that's where real transformation happens. You are not who you were yesterday. You are who you choose to be today. And progress? It's never about perfection. It's about taking that first step, then another, then another. The future isn't built in a day. It's built in the small decisions you make every moment. But here's the key. You can't do this alone. The people you surround yourself with matter. Find those who inspire, challenge, and believe in you, because growth isn't just about letting go of the past. It's about stepping into the right future. So today I challenge you, let go, not because the past doesn't matter, but because you matter more. Your future is waiting, and it's time to meet it. Life is unpredictable. There are things that happen that we wish we could change, things that feel unfair, things we never saw coming, and yet we spend so much time worrying about them, trying to control things that are entirely out of our hands. We try to change people, rewrite the past, predict the future, or control every possible outcome, as if doing so will bring us peace. But it never does. The more we focus on what we cannot control, the more powerless we feel. The more we fight against reality, the more exhausted we become. But here's the truth: the only thing you have complete control over is yourself. Your mindset, your actions, your choices, that is where your power lies. The moment you start focusing on yourself rather than the uncontrollable, everything shifts. You regain energy, you regain clarity, you regain control, not over the world, but over how you respond to it. And that is the most powerful kind of control there is. Think about how often we get caught up in the actions of others. We obsess over what people think of us. We try to win their approval. We try to change them, fix them, convince them to see the world the way we do. And in doing so, we give them power over us. We allow their words, their opinions, their choices to dictate how we feel about ourselves. But the reality is you cannot control how others see you. You cannot control how they behave. You cannot control whether they support you, believe in you, or understand you. The only thing you can control is how you respond. The only thing you can control is who you choose to be despite it all. The same applies to the past. How much time do we waste replaying old mistakes, wishing things had turned out differently? But no amount of overthinking will change what has already happened. No amount of regret will rewrite history. The past is done. The only thing that matters now is what you choose to do next. Will you keep letting your past dictate your future, or will you take control of your next move? And what about the future? So many of us live in a constant state of anxiety, trying to predict every possible outcome, trying to prepare for every possible failure. But the truth is, no one can predict the future. No one can control what tomorrow brings. Worrying about it only steals the joy of today. The only thing you can control is the effort you put in right now, the habits you build, the decisions you make, the way you choose to show up day after day. That is what shapes the future. Not worry, not fear, not control, but action. So what if you shifted your focus? What if instead of wasting energy on what you cannot change, you put it into what you can? What if you stopped worrying about what others think and started building the life you want? What if you let go of regret and started focusing on growth? What if you stopped fearing the future and started preparing for it by taking meaningful steps today? Everything changes when you take responsibility for yourself, when you stop looking outward for validation, for control, for certainty, and instead look inward, because that's where your power is, in your decisions, in your mindset, in the way you choose to move forward, despite the things you cannot control. You get to decide what you focus on. You get to decide how you respond to challenges. You get to decide whether you stay stuck in the past or build a better future. And that decision, that focus is what separates those who feel powerless from those who create change. The world is unpredictable. People are unpredictable. Life is messy, and it will never go exactly the way you planned. But none of that matters as much as what you do with what you have. The moment you stop trying to control everything outside of yourself and start focusing on yourself, you gain a kind of freedom that most people never experience. A freedom to grow, to evolve, to build, to create, to become. Because control was never the goal. Power was never in trying to dictate every outcome. Power was always in learning to master yourself. Who you were yesterday does not have to be who you are today. One of the biggest traps people fall into is the belief that their past defines them. They believe that because they made mistakes, because they failed, because they once held certain beliefs or behaved in a certain way, they are locked into that identity forever. But the truth is, identity is not fixed. You are not bound by the person you once were. You have the ability to change, to grow, to evolve. And that change begins the moment you decide to redefine yourself. Think about the labels you have carried with you, whether given to you by others or ones you placed upon yourself. Maybe you have told yourself you are not good enough, not smart enough, not disciplined enough. Maybe people in your life have convinced you that you are a failure, that you will never amount to anything, that your past mistakes have determined your future. And maybe, without even realizing it, you started to believe them. But the moment you accept those labels, you give them power. The moment you let your past define you, you stop yourself from becoming something more. The truth is, you are not the mistakes you have made. You are not the failures you have experienced. You are not the person you were 5 years ago, last year, or even yesterday. You are who you choose to be today. The most successful people in the world, the people who've transformed their lives, are not those who never failed. They are the ones who refuse to let failure define them. They are the ones who decided that their past would not dictate their future. They understood that identity is not a permanent label, it is a choice. But here's the challenge. Redefining yourself requires courage. It requires letting go of old narratives, of old identities, of the comfort of the familiar, even when that familiarity is painful. Because as strange as it sounds, many people would rather stay stuck in a negative identity than face the uncertainty of change. They would rather keep telling themselves they are a failure than risk proving themselves wrong. Because change is hard, growth is uncomfortable. Reinventing yourself means stepping into the unknown. But here's what most people don't realize. You don't need permission to change. You don't need anyone else to believe in you before you start believing in yourself. You don't need to wait for some perfect moment, some external sign that tells you it's time. The only thing you need is the decision to no longer accept an identity that doesn't serve you. The decision to rewrite the story you tell yourself. And rewriting that story doesn't mean pretending the past never happened. It doesn't mean ignoring the lessons, forgetting the pain, or erasing who you used to be. It means recognizing that your past is just one chapter, it is not the whole book. It means using what you've been through to fuel who you are becoming instead of allowing it to change you to who you used to be. There are people who have completely changed their lives simply because they decided to. People who went from being unhealthy to becoming athletes. People who went from being financially broke to building empires. People who went from feeling completely lost to finding their true purpose. What made the difference? They stopped identifying with their past and started acting in alignment with the future they wanted. They stopped saying, "This is just who I am," and started asking, "Who do I want to become?" And that's the real question. Who do you want to become? Not who your past says you are, not who other people think you should be, but who you choose to be. Because every single day you have that choice. Every single day you get to decide if you will keep repeating the same patterns, telling the same stories, living in the same identity, or if you will break free and step into something new. Change doesn't happen overnight. Reinventing yourself is not about one big dramatic transformation. It's about small choices every single day. It's about showing up as the person you want to become even before you fully feel like them. It's about proving to yourself with action that you are no longer the person you once were. So ask yourself, what identity are you holding on to that no longer serves you? What story about yourself have you been telling that is keeping you stuck? And what would happen if today you decided to rewrite it? Because you are not your past, you are your potential. And the only thing standing between you and the person you want to be is the decision to start acting like them today. One of the biggest reasons people stay stuck in the past is the illusion that they need to have everything figured out before they move forward. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect version of themselves before they take action. But perfection is an illusion, and waiting for it only leads to inaction. If you want to change your life, you cannot wait until you feel completely ready. You have to start before you're ready. Too many people hesitate to take the first step because they fear failure. They think that if they don't do it perfectly, it's not worth doing it all. But the truth is, growth doesn't come from perfection, it comes from progress. Small, consistent action will always outweigh big, uncertain plans that never get executed. The people who achieve great things are not the ones who had the perfect strategy from day one. They are the ones who took messy action, made mistakes, learned from them, and kept moving forward. Think about a child learning to walk. When they take their first steps, they fall. They stumble. They make mistake after mistake. But they don't sit there and think, well, I wasn't perfect at it, so I guess I'll never walk. They keep going. They get up and try again, and eventually walking becomes second nature. Now, imagine if adults treated growth the same way if instead of seeing mistakes as proof that they're not good enough, they saw them as proof that they're learning. The truth is, failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. The most successful people in any field are not the ones who never failed, but the ones who failed the most and kept going. If you look at the most innovative companies, the best athletes, the greatest leaders, you'll find one thing in common. They all made countless mistakes before they ever achieved greatness. What separates them from everyone else is that they didn't let those mistakes stop them. They kept improving, refining, and adjusting. They focused on progress, not perfection. If you want to move forward in life, you have to stop treating mistakes as the end of the road. A mistake is not proof that you aren't good enough, it's proof that you're trying. And trying is what leads to growth. The only real failure is refusing to try at all. But progress isn't just about external success, it's about becoming the kind of person who keeps showing up, no matter what. It's about developing the resilience to keep going even when things don't go as planned. It's about having the courage to take action even when you're uncertain. Think about the people who inspire you. Are they the ones who had an easy, flawless journey? Or are they the ones who overcame obstacles, who fought through setbacks, who refused to give up even when the odds were against them? Growth comes from struggle, from persistence, from learning to embrace imperfection as part of the process. The biggest mistake you can make is thinking that you need to be perfect before you start. You don't need to know everything before you begin. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to have every step mapped out. You just need to start. Take one step forward, then another, then another. Adjust as you go. Learn from every experience. That's how progress happens, not in one giant leap, but in the small daily decisions that add up over time. And yes, there will be days when it feels like you're not moving fast enough. Days when you question whether your efforts are making a difference. But progress is not always visible in the moment. Just like you don't notice yourself growing taller day by day, you won't always see your personal growth happening in real time. But that doesn't mean it's not happening. Every time you choose to take action instead of waiting, every time you push through discomfort instead of giving up, you are growing. You are moving forward. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for the right conditions. Stop waiting until you feel completely confident. Confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from action. It comes from proving to yourself over and over again that you are capable of handling whatever comes next. The future you want isn't built on flawless execution. It's built on persistence. It's built on the willingness to show up every day, even when you don't feel ready. It's built on choosing progress over perfection again and again. Because in the end, the people who change their lives are not the ones who waited until they were ready. They are the ones who started before they were ready and figured it out along the way. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Yet, so many people neglect it. They spend years seeking validation from others, trying to fit into expectations that were never theirs to begin with, trying to be someone they think the world will approve of instead of being who they truly are. They chase approval, external success, and the opinions of people who may not even matter in the long run. But no amount of external validation can replace the feeling of truly knowing and accepting yourself. If you want to move forward in life, if you want to let go of the past and create something new, you have to start prioritizing yourself. Not in a selfish way, but in a way that allows you to become the best version of who you are meant to be. You cannot build a meaningful life if you are constantly neglecting your own needs, your own dreams, your own growth. You have to focus on yourself not in comparison to others, not based on what the world expects of you, but based on what truly matters to you. The first step is learning to trust yourself. So many people struggle with self-doubt, constantly looking to others for answers, for permission, for reassurance that they are on the right path. But no one else can tell you who you are meant to be. No one else can decide what's best for you. That responsibility belongs to you and you alone. And the only way to build that trust is to start listening to yourself, to your instincts, your desires, your values. It means making choices that align with who you are, not who others expect you to be. But focusing on yourself also means letting go of comparison. It is so easy to look at other people's lives and feel like you are falling behind. Social media makes it even worse, constantly showing you curated highlights of people who seem to have it all together, while you feel like you are still figuring things out. But comparison is a trap. It distracts you from your own path. It makes you measure your progress based on someone else's journey instead of your own. And the truth is, no one has it all figured out. Everyone has their own struggles, their own doubts, their own insecurities. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not the absence of struggle, it's the ability to keep moving forward despite it. When you focus on yourself, you stop competing with others and start competing with who you were yesterday. You stop worrying about where someone else is in their journey and start asking, how can I be better than I was last week? Last month? Last day, only comparison that matters. Because real success isn't about being better than someone else, it's about being better than the person you used to be. Focusing on yourself also means setting boundaries. It means learning to say no to things that drain you, to people who hold you back, to situations that no longer serve you. It means prioritizing your mental and emotional well-being even when others don't understand. Because the truth is, not everyone will support your growth. Some people are comfortable with who you used to be. And when you start changing, they may resist it. They may question you, criticize you, or try to pull you back into old habits, old patterns, old versions of yourself. But their resistance is not your problem. Your responsibility is to keep growing, keep evolving, and keep choosing yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. And the more you focus on yourself, the more you realize that happiness is not found in external achievements or the approval of others. It's found in knowing who you are, in living in alignment with your values, in doing the things that make you feel alive. It's found in the quiet confidence that comes from trusting yourself, from knowing that no matter what happens, you are capable of handling it. It's found in the small daily choices, the way you speak to yourself, the habits you build, the people you surround yourself with, the way you choose to show up for yourself every single day. When you stop looking outward for fulfillment and start looking inward, everything changes. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself to anyone. You no longer need validation to feel worthy. You no longer feel threatened by other people's success because you are too focused on building your own. You become more grounded, more secure, more at peace with yourself. Because at the end of the day, no one else is living your life but you. No one else is responsible for your happiness, your growth, or your success. That is your responsibility. And the moment you fully embrace that, the moment you commit to focusing on yourself instead of the past, instead of other people, instead of things you cannot control, that is the moment you take your power back. That is the moment everything starts to change.